Tonight, Ukraine's president makes a direct plea to the Canadian government.
Can you imagine hearing your children hear all these severe explosions?
Faced with increasing threat, Volodymyr Zelensky pleads for Canada to do more to help stop Russia. Now this as Toronto's Sick Kids Hospital prepares to receive 2 child cancer patients from Ukraine. Plus,
it really pushes things back, and it's more money, more time wasted, so it kind of sucks.
Ontario college students could be out of school once again as faculty members plan for a strike Friday if their demands are not met. And
creating a space where, people who look like me and Chris can come and feel comfortable and work and learn and grow.
The city plans to transform a vacant downtown building into an arts hub and live music venue for emerging artists. More on the plan and an exclusive look at the space. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin with an emotional day in Ottawa. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivering a powerful address to the members of Parliament, thanking Canadians for their support, but also pleading for our government to do more to stop the bombs raining down on his country. Ashley Burke reports.
Our friend, Volodymyr Zelensky.
He's the leader of a nation under deadly attack, risking being tracked and targeted by Russia to speak to Parliament live.
Currently, we have 97 children that died during this war.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke about suffering, about the daily death toll, asking Canadian MPs and senators to picture if it was them.
Justin, can you imagine hearing your children hear all these severe explosions, bombing of airport, bombing of Ottawa airport?
His speech laced with references to Canadian cities and landmarks.
CN Tower. Can you imagine famous CN Tower in Toronto if it was hit by Russian bombs?
Zelensky famously using his voice of defiance once again to galvanize support.
You're inspiring democracies and democratic leaders around the world to be more courageous, more united, and to fight harder for what we believe in.
While the Prime Minister was in Parliament, Moscow added him and nearly the entire House of Commons to its blacklist, banning them from entering Russia. This after Canada's latest round of sanctions today against 15 Russian officials. Zelensky expressed his thanks, but called for more and stronger measures and repeated his plea for a no-fly zone.
Please stop the bombing. How many more cruise missiles have to fall on our cities until you make this happen?
We must do more together with our allies to secure Ukraine's airspace.
But NATO says it can't, fearing that would escalate and widen the war.
At this point, based on the information we have a red line that we can't cross.
I am grateful to Canadian people, and I am confident that together we will overcome and will be victorious. Thank you to Canada.
A standing ovation 3 minutes long. Guests in the audience chanting, "Glory to Ukraine." Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
The local Ukrainian community here was watching Zelensky's address closely. Now, they too want Canada to do as much as possible to help Ukrainians, including their own family members still living there. Greg Ross spoke with one family who runs a Ukrainian restaurant in Etobicoke.
Nadia Barilko says the food on her menu at Barrel House Korchma restaurant is the same food her grandmother used to cook back in Ukraine.
Some people came here and say, "Oh, we came like home."
Parliament of Canada.
And of course, what's happening at home is top of mind for all Ukrainian Canadians right now.
We want to live. We want to have peace.
Barilko was emotional as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed Canadian Parliament today. She watched with her husband and daughter, who she owns the restaurant with.
Please, I can't.
She struggled to express her emotion over what's happening in her country and says she's worried about her family members who are still there after a bomb landed less than 50 kilometers from the city they live in.
We have lots of family there. You know what is very hard hear about that news. It's now it's 22nd year is like happy.
They're worried for their children, like their land, their homes.
Barroco's daughter, Tetiana, says not only is the safety of their family members uncertain, the future of the country they call home is in jeopardy.
It's heartbreaking seeing people dying for no reason. Sorry. Like, this is my country. Like, my culture is like getting stripped away from Putin. He keeps saying that Ukraine is part of Russia, but we have so much deeper history.
President Zelensky.
Today in Parliament, bipartisan support for Ukraine, with the Prime Minister vowing to continue sending military and other forms of aid.
They all said that they're going to be doing more, but is that enough?
They support President Zelensky's calls for a no-fly zone over Ukraine and for more help from NATO. Sofia Holya works as a bartender at the restaurant.
I'm here as an international student, and I don't have anyone here. So all my family is out there.
These days, a lot of the money she earns here is sent back home to help her family in Ukraine, including her brother, who has volunteered to serve in the military. She says, despite all of the devastation back home, it's important to stay positive.
I know Ukrainian people, I know Ukrainian soldiers. They're strong and they're just unbelievable. And you will fight until last day, last soldiers.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
CBC News has learned Prime Minister Trudeau will be attending a special NATO summit in Brussels next Thursday. Now, the meeting at NATO headquarters was announced days after a Russian airstrike on a military facility right near the border with NATO member Poland. Leaders are expected to assess the war in Ukraine and weigh next steps. U.S. President Joe Biden has also confirmed he will attend. Ukraine said it saw possible room for compromise in its talks with Russia today, even as Russia has intensified its bombardment in Kyiv. The number of people fleeing from Ukraine has now surpassed 3 million. And there's now another worry. The head of NATO says Moscow could be staging a false flag attack to justify escalating its assault.
They are making absurd claims about biological labs and chemical weapons in Ukraine. This is just another lie, and we are concerned that Moscow could stage a false flag operation, possibly including chemical weapons.
Meanwhile, Kyiv, along with its suburbs and other Ukrainian cities, continue to come under heavy shelling. The capital city is under a 35-hour curfew amid fears of a fresh wave of attacks by the Russian forces. The UN says at least 700 civilians have been killed, but the actual death toll is expected to be much higher. And a high-stakes operation is underway between hospitals in Ukraine and here in Canada. The mission to transfer children with cancer out of the war zone. Toronto's Sick Kids is one of the facilities that has agreed to accept patients, with 2 families set to arrive at the hospital as early as tomorrow. Ali Chiasson has more.
He had chemotherapy, but he didn't complete therapy because the war started.
These children have been facing a battle on 2 fronts, weeks of relentless shelling at home in Ukraine while battling cancer at the same time.
Hospitals in Ukraine are under siege, and so they've been emptying their patients. Those patients are moving on ambulances and on trains and in cars to a clinic in Poland, and there the clinic is assessing where those children should go.
Hospitals throughout Europe are taking children. Sick Kids in Toronto said they could take a number of patients. Brian McDonald is with the humanitarian organization Aman Lara.
We've learned a lot about how to get people out of dangerous places. And so when the war broke out in Ukraine, we looked at that and we said, we've got to find a way to help here.
We can confirm that we are expecting to receive 2 patients with cancer from Ukraine within the next 24 to 36 hours.
It's one of the most logistically challenging endeavors Sick Kids has ever taken on.
On one hand, identify patients and families who are able to travel to Toronto. At the same time, in parallel, you have to ensure that we have a transport mechanism for these patients from Poland to an airport to Toronto. And we have to have immigration papers in hand in order for the families to enter Canada.
And the reality is, these children have had their treatments interrupted by the war back home.
Most of these kids are in a life-threatening situation, and any kind of delay of the treatment is very bad for them.
Many of them will have been in the middle of treatment and gather the historical data that we can, and then reassess, and then plan to continue on as if they were Toronto patients.
Can the unintended pause in cancer treatment affect their prognosis?
The short answer is yes, but I think each child's story will be individual. And so I think there will remain lots of hopefulness in the care for these kids.
The oncology staff at Sick Kids is ready to take on the challenge and restore hope for these families who have battled so much. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Nick Cernkovich joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Nick, snow was falling for much of the day, but not too much accumulation.
Yeah, that's right, Calda. This is a look at the storm system that we had moved through the GTA earlier today, and you'll notice there was snow. In fact, Pearson Airport reporting about 6 centimeters of snow. However, with the temperatures at or above the zero mark, nothing really stuck, at least for most places across the city. There's a look at daytime highs. Actually, this came through the overnight, but generally speaking, across the region, we sat around 0 to +1 throughout the better part of the day today. That system's now cleared off. As we move through tonight, what we're looking at is fog patches developing basically right across southern Ontario. And so that'll take a while to dissipate tomorrow. Generally cloudy skies for tomorrow, and likely reduced visibilities as well for the morning commute. The next 24 hours looks like this: 2 degrees, at least in the city of Toronto, through the overnight period. Areas around the city of Toronto, 0 and +1. Fog for the overnight, dissipating for tomorrow, mainly cloudy skies, 6 degrees. But it gets a lot warmer than 6 as we move through the next couple of days. Your full forecast in just a bit.
Thanks so much, Nick. Toronto police are seeking the public's help in locating a missing 13-year-old girl. Aveda Posanelli was last seen 10 days ago near Royal York Road and Evans Avenue in Etobicoke. She is described as 5'1" with a slim build, light brown hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information is asked to contact investigators. To Brampton now, where the province has announced it will be moving forward with building Ryerson University's School of Medicine.
This is the largest expansion in more than 10 years. And it will create more spaces at all 6 medical schools across the province, further delivering on our promise to bring high-quality health care to all parts of Ontario. But most exciting of all, we're building the brand new Ryerson School of Medicine that will open right here in Brampton.
Ford's government also announced plans to expand the number of medical school spots. Ryerson will receive 80 undergraduate and 95 postgraduate students. Ryerson is working with Brampton to find a location for the school, which aims to begin accepting students in the fall of 2025. Well, college students in the province could have to put their studies on hold once again. The union, representing more than 16,000 Ontario college faculty members, are expected to go on strike at the end of this week if their demands are not met. Lisa Shing has more details.
After a couple of years of uncertainty and online learning, Humber College students have just returned to campus. So the news of possible job action by instructors, counselors, and librarians has them on edge.
It's very upsetting, to be honest with you. This semester has been, the only way I can describe it is a dumpster fire.
I'm very nervous about it. Honestly, this year has been very difficult.
It really pushes things back, and it's more money, more time wasted, so it kind of sucks.
Negotiations over issues like job security and workload are at a standstill.
It's the equivalent of playing chicken with students here, and it's ridiculous. We are in a crisis moment right now in the system.
The union branch representing faculty from 24 Ontario colleges released an open letter this week saying staff will go on strike in just a few days if the employer doesn't agree to voluntary binding interest arbitration. That's having a neutral arbitrator build an agreement from the 2 competing proposals. The College Employers Council would rather have an arbitrator just pick one proposal or the other.
We said we can't go that far. We've gone so far on these very issues
but you've taken them a little bit too far. Management immediately has not seeking any concessions.
Regardless of the issues, Ontario's minister responsible for colleges is telling the two sides to figure it out, and soon.
Students cannot afford a strike at this time. They're finally back in the classroom. That's where they need to be.
This mom agrees. Her son attends Humber College and she's worried.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, of course, there's a resolution and that there isn't any stop to education. There isn't any disruption for these students because they've had enough. And I think for their mental health, for their education, for their employment goals.
If the two sides can't agree, then students will likely be looking at another disruption to their school year come Friday. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. An arts nonprofit is working with the city to transform a vacant downtown property into a live DIY music hub. The Toronto Music Advisory Committee put forth a proposal today to turn the city-owned spot on Queen Street West into an affordable space for new and emerging artists to play and rehearse, with a focus on those in the BIPOC community. Our Jessica Ng got a sneak peek.
The latest video from the arts nonprofit It's Okay features Toronto-based hip-hop R&B duo Trippy. Before the pandemic, the organization was hosting multi-genre concert series, from jazz trumpet to hip-hop and more. They're hoping their next venture takes them straight to the heart of Queen West.
Man, I was just doing recognizance. They still in our soul.
It truly is a community center for creatives.
How badly does Toronto need a space like this?
You know, I think spaces like this, you know, in some shape or form do exist, but they're not led by, you know, people who look like us.
Upstairs, they're planning a collaborative workspace and a visual arts gallery. Then on the main floor, an accessible performance space with a stage, photo studio, and a green room. The basement will be outfitted with flexible rehearsal space, which is becoming tougher to find with tonight's closure of the rehearsal factory on Geary, a staple for independent musicians.
They don't have the opportunities to collaborate. The spaces for that to happen don't exist. So to have a space where that can happen is essential.
So how did all of this come to be? Well, the city bought this building, the building beside it on Queen West, and the parking lot back in 2021. The plan is to combine all of these properties and make it so that it can be used for new affordable housing, a cultural hub, and a park. But it will be years before all of that's completed. And in the meantime, this 10,000 square foot building could very well be used to fill another need.
One of the things we want to see is live music continue to thrive in downtown Toronto. Lots of live music venues have been priced out of the city. We're trying to creatively use city real estate to keep them here.
It's Okay is hoping to offer use of the space for free or at subsidized membership rates. If approved, the nonprofit will get a 2-year lease on the building rent-free with shows starting in June. The proposal will go before council April 6th.
And I hope, you know, this, you know, spurs a change and, you know, building owners, the city, that, you know, we can figure out how to, you know, have the arts happen in spaces that aren't quote unquote, you know, art spaces.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's go back to Nick now. And Nick, looking like winter today, but more spring-like weather is on the way later this week.
Yeah, big shift in our weather pattern coming up over the next couple of days. And of course, we've gone from the snowfall today to some very warm temperatures as we move through the next couple. Here's a look at your weather headlines. Fog patches again developing through the overnight. Midweek warm up. And I mean, when I say warm up, I mean a definite warm up into the mid-teens, and weekend rainfall, but we'll talk about that in the long range forecast. Here's a look at the next couple of days. So moving through tonight, story's really going to be the fog. So that'll reduce visibilities, especially areas outside the GTA for tomorrow morning's commute. Slowly dissipating toward the latter part of the day, likely seeing a few hints of sunshine, but generally cloudy skies for the most part tomorrow, at least around the Golden Horseshoe. Then as we move through Thursday morning, again looking at morning fog dissipating, and then generally sort of a mix of sun and cloud through the day on Thursday, and then heading into Friday, we've got some more cloud cover and another system that's going to bring with it some rainfall sort of mid-Friday through until Saturday. The big story, though, through the next couple of days is going to be the temperatures. Not much to speak of in terms of the winds with this either. We have seen some days over the last week where we've had gusts upwards to about 60, 70 kilometers per hour. The most it's going to be is closer to about 40 as we move through Thursday, so not too much in the way of winds. Temperature-wise for tonight in southwestern Ontario, we're looking at temperatures around the 0 mark, or just above it, 1 degree down in Windsor. Fog patches developing right across southern Ontario, southwestern Ontario. Golden Horseshoe, very much the same. Bit more in the way of cloud cover. Fog patches around the region. Lows, rather, of about 0 to 1 degree. And again, fog. 6 degrees for tomorrow. Mainly cloudy skies. Overnight lows staying above the 0 mark. Thursday, though, 16 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud. The average for this time of year, about +4. It tapers off a little bit heading into the weekend, but above average for the next 5 days. Kelda.
Thanks so much, Nick. Finally tonight, Toronto's oldest Hindu temple is finally going to look like one. The temple was built on Fern Avenue in the 1970s, but it still looks like an old Christian church. Decades later, a $1.5 million renovation project is underway to turn the facility into a modern temple, making it look more like it would in India.
This is the first temple in Toronto area. Start in 1973. They're starting their prayer in small places. In 1969, they decide to buy their own place. So they bought this place back in 1973. Well, people come from now all around GTA. So we decide to renovate this temple. So we're working on this from last 3-4 years. We decide to give a Hindu temple shape to this place. Now our dream coming true.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond will have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and we will leave you now with a look at the CN Tower, lit up in blue and yellow tonight in support of the people of Ukraine. Have a good night.